Come on, question number 2. Is God always in control? It's actually, again, it's easy to answer, but it's complicated. Can I say most of the teaching about this doesn't come from the Bible. It comes from kind of medieval thinking. It comes from Dante's Inferno. And the subject's either very simple or it's a lot more complicated than we think. But the classical Calvinist free will versus, free will Arminius versus Calvinist predestination doesn't cut it. That's not really biblical teaching. And is God in control? I mean, yes and no. He's in charge. He's over all. So here's the best way of looking at this. An all-powerful, all-knowing God who's outside of space and time creates this universe. He creates the matrix, if you will. He creates this place of time and space in which we live. But he also created us in his image and in his likeness with the ability to choose. I think at times people say, do we have free will? I think we have a will. And I think we're free to choose some things, but we're not free to choose some other things. Our will is in bondage to our heart. So here's my point. Big picture, yes, God's in charge over everything. And God will. He's all powerful, and he will bring this chaos world, if you will, this cosmos, back into his order and his purposes. But that doesn't mean that every little thing that is going on, he is implicitly willing it to happen. Again, I'm just pulling probably silly examples out of my head, but so if today I were driving my car and I start looking at my phone, as I won't do this, but I'm looking at my phone as I drive, and I hit a child and kill a child, how would we interpret that? Would we say, well, God was in control? No, what you actually should do is say Graham was out of control. Now, God was God over that situation. God was God in that situation, but God didn't want that child to die. It's really important. We've got to get this. So right now, all over the world, it's a horrible thing to think, but children, babies are being born today. People are breathing their last breath and going into eternity without knowing Christ today. Today, thousands and thousands of children will be abused today because there are sinners on planet Earth. There are people, doing good, bad and ugly, all kind of different things all over the earth. And God is not the one, like we're little puppets on a string doing these things. So if I were to sit down today and read my Bible, it's because I choose to do that. But again, it's because God's grace has acted in my heart that I want to do that. But if I were to sit down today and write somebody a nasty message that would hurt and just destroy them, it's not because God was in control. It's because Graham was out of control. Yeah? So let me put it this way. Paul writes to Titus and he says, the grace of God which leads to salvation has appeared to every man. Yeah? And that means the grace of God that saves us for eternity, but actually the grace of God that brings that salvation to bear even in the smaller. God's grace is there available. The issue is, will we cooperate with the grace of God? Will we embrace the grace of God? Will we let his grace be in vain? Paul says, don't let the grace of God be in vain. Or will we allow that grace to transform us and change us? So the teaching that says God's in control and he manipulates everything, I think is completely wrong. But the teaching that says God's outside and he's not involved and he's just left us all on his own, that's wrong as well. So God is all powerful, but he places that, he's given us his authority, the authority of the name of Jesus. It's not God in heaven pulling levers. The authority in the name of Jesus has been given to the church, and the church will answer for what we do or what we don't do with that authority. God will call me on the carpet one day, and I'm thankful for his grace, and he'll say, Graham, how did you lead the churches I gave you? How did you lead your family? How did you raise your children? And I won't say, but God, you were in charge. So if I raise my kids with no self-control and no godly principles, well, you were in charge, God. And he's going to go, no, Graham, I was in charge, but I gave over that charge to you and I charge you. Paul writes to elders, he says, I charge you, to write to Timothy as an elder. And he says, Timothy, I charge you, preach the word, be instant, in season, out of season, rebuke, exhort. He's saying, and God's given us that charge. So I would look at God being in charge in that way. He is completely in charge in that way, but he's given that over to us that we may walk with it on this earth. Boom. Hope that helps. Good.